and gentlemen, and welcome to Stardome from Home. You know, through the years, I've been asked this question a million times. Hey, Bruce, how'd you start the comedy club? How did all that come about? So tonight, what we're going to do, I have brought together three of my closest friends in the comedy business, and three guys who were absolutely instrumental in the success of the Stardome. And I'd like to introduce them right now. First of all, the first guy I want to introduce, his name is Chris Dipetta. And let me tell you a little bit about Chris. There was these three guys from Cleveland who come up with this brilliant idea to move to Atlanta, Georgia, to open up a comedy club. It was Chris, Ronnie, and Dave, and they opened the club. I think it was in February of 1983, and 82. It was a rockin' 82.
82.
82. I was wrong. There's Chris. Well, anyway, Chris and Ronnie and Dave got it all started, and they got it going in the South. And I happened to walk in there one day, and I go, "Wow, this is what we need to do." So that's how Chris got involved. Then, when I decided to do my very, very first show, I booked it through a entertainment agency, and the first guy we ever booked, who's going to join us in a minute, was J. Anthony Brown. He was our headliner on the very, very first show. And then Jay told me about Chris. I called Chris and we started doing comedy at the name of the club was Singles. And on the very first show we did, once we started doing it on a regular basis, he books this guy named James Gregory. And that's where the legend of James Gregory started. So let me introduce, everybody knows this guy. He's the funniest man in America. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome James Gregory. How you doing, James?
Well, that's me, Bruce. How you doing? Good to see you. You too, Chris. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you know, in the early days, you know, we were all young. How old, James? 14? I was 12.
I was 14 when I started.
We were very young men back in those days. And Chris and Ronnie and Dave, they kind of had it down, and they kind of took me under their wing, and they helped me along to get started. And I remember the very first show when Jay Anthony hit the stage. I mean, I just got this fever. I'm saying people are just going to love this. And from that moment on, I mean, I was hooked on comedy. And then it was about 2 months later when we started doing it on a regular basis. And the club was Singles. It was downtown Birmingham. And on this show, it was the first time James was there. So anybody who's seen James, you know what it's like. It's just amazing. And that night, the first time James ever went up, I think there was maybe 200 people in the audience. And all of a sudden, he takes the stage, and the magic of James Gregory was there. I've never heard laughter like that. He related to the people. It was one of the most incredible moments in comedy that I can remember. James, what do you remember from that first night?
Oh, I can remember it exactly what it was. It was June the 10th, 1983.
You're right.
And I was the feature act. I was the middle act.
You were?
Yeah, a comedian in Atlanta, Georgia, Rob Cleveland, was the opening act.
He was.
I was the feature act. Mm-hmm. And I believe the headliner was John Mendoza.
It was John Mendoza.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so here I am, and I'm nervous as can be. And so Rob goes up, and I go, he was pretty good. So then this James Gregory comes up, and my chest is, I go, man, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. They're going to look, and he's only the feature act. Oh, I can't wait till the headliner gets up there. Well, John, who's a great guy, I love him to death.
I do too. I love John Mendoza.
He's a great guy. He was from New York. He's never been to Alabama before. His opening line was, "Hey, I'm from New York. I don't even know if I'm going to like you people." And all of a sudden, it was like, whoop, 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 whoop. I mean, it was, it really slowed it down. But then from then on, James took over. And, it's just been incredible, James, what you've done. And, it was just the start of many, many, many weeks. I figured out that you've done over 1,000 shows at our clubs. There was times where with James, remember James, we used to book you 3 weeks in May and 2 weeks and 5 weeks a year.
Right. As a matter of fact, and then we eventually went to 6 weeks. We did the whole month of May with James Gregory. We do 4 weeks in May and 2 weeks in November. So we do 6 weeks a year for several years there.
Right. Well, anyway, and Chris and Ronnie and Dave, but mostly Chris, I mean, all of the hot young comics would come through Atlanta, and they'd all go through the Punchline. And there were so many incredible guys back in those days. And Chris, why don't you talk about the early days at the Punchline, and then when you want to pitch to Steve, and he'll run that video for us. But Chris, tell us about the early days at the Punchline when you guys first started and some of the acts that came through.
Well, I mean, when we first started, strangely enough, James, I guess, was the first person on stage at the Punchline.
There you go.
Yes, it was. And Chris, tell the folks that was February the 17th, 1982.
1982, yeah, absolutely. And we were, it was funny because we opened the club up. Ronnie and Dave, and were primary partners in the club. They had some silent partners. I actually was only working the door. I wasn't even a partner at the time in the club because I had no money. And actually, nobody had any money. We put together the club.
And there's some
the
guy
club
named
was put
Vito.
together because
Yeah.
we really started. The reason we started the club was we used to go home to Cleveland at Christmas time. And there used to be a club in Cleveland called the Cleveland Comedy Club, strangely enough, in probably one of the worst areas of Cleveland. And it was in downtown Cleveland, really in a terrible area. It used to be the Grecian Gardens. They took it over. It was a shotgun room. We'd go there Christmas time. We'd always go see a show because, we were all drinking. We'd want to leave the family and go do something. Every time we went to the club in Cleveland, it was packed. And like I said, it was in one of the worst areas. And we decided, if this could work in Cleveland, Ohio, it's got to work in Atlanta, Georgia. There's no way this can't work in Atlanta. And we were all just all out of the club business. We'd been in the nightclub business for a while. We were doing country for a while. I used to have an electric bull. That was one of my fortes for a while. Yeah, I did that. And then Dave finally found the location one morning. He had stayed up all night and was looking in the paper. We couldn't find the location. And as it turned out, there was a country bar that went out of business. And Dave was across the street eating pancakes at the pancake house, and walked across the street, saw the building. The guy opened the door. He walked in the door, looked around, and told the guy, we'll take it. And that was it. That was the start. And then, the other start was trying to find the money to put this thing together. And that took about a week and a half to try and get everybody to pitch in to get involved in the club. It did. And, the strange part of this was when we opened with James, J. Anthony, and Mark Wiener, okay, he was our first headliner at the club. The club, and this is no exaggeration, for the first 2 years was sold out every night. I mean, Tuesday through Sunday. Tuesday through Sunday. Okay, now who sells Tuesday out now or Wednesday? It just doesn't happen. But, we were amazed at the success of the club right off the bat. And, everybody got their money back probably in about within a year of everything putting in. And, you came rolling over about, less than a year after we were opened, and took a look around and said, this could probably work.
Yeah.
It's done okay for you in Birmingham. from what I can tell.
Hey, so why don't you had all those guys back in the early days. Why don't you pitch that video, Stevie? Why don't you run that first video of all the comics? And these were some of the early guys that played at our club and at Chris's club back in the early '80s.
From Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Atlanta Comedy Classic, serving up the hottest comedy in the South. Starring...
Hi, we're Pinsky and Gray.
You know, being a team can be a lot of fun, but there are drawbacks. You got to split everything.
You want half the roll?
Yeah, I want half the roll. Give me half this.
No,
I'll take the bigger piece.
I want the chicken.
Do you have to go to the restroom?
No. Do you?
Only if you do.
Okay, I gotta go.
I gotta go too. Then.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, let me have half the...
You know, I like comedy for one thing and one thing only. The things that allows you to do with your spare time. For me, ham hunting. I bagged this baby at an A&P in Valdosta.
He killed my hog. He killed my hog. So what kind of business was you in before you got in comedy?
I was in advertising. I spent 3 years in advertising. It's just so complicated. I mean, I just got out of the business. Like, first, like this thing here, this little display. I mean, a few years ago, there wasn't near that much detail. Take a look under here.
You're sick, man.
Take a look at this, Tim. Look under there.
I'm not gonna look under there.
Hi, I'm Jeff Foxworthy. I left a job at IBM to be a comic because I wanted to be my own boss, set my own hours, control my own destiny.
Yeah, you do a good job. I'll tell the people you follow about you. They're mighty in. Mr. Spot.
Personally, I don't even know why I'm in this video with the rest of these degenerates. I'm only doing this comedy thing till my hockey knee gets back in shape. Then it's back to the Montreal Canadiens and on to the Stanley Cup.
Would you just... That's what pisses me off. That's not what I ordered. That's not animal cracker pudding.
It is?
No, see, ain't no elephants in there.
I'll be damned.
Ain't no animals at all. Ain't no rhinos, ain't no birds,
No
ain't
bunnies,
no
ain't
giraffe.
a damn thing in there.
There's a duck. There's a duck in there.
Hi, I'm Louis Nixon. I'm very excited about being in the show tonight. It's an honor to be in the show, and things are starting to take off for me now. These things take time.
I was thinking this morning, you know, Jackie Onassis, the only woman alive who pull out a $50, look at it and think, yeah, I slept with it. You know, Marilyn Monroe might, but she's gone too.
Oh, you're sick. You're sick.
I'm trying to get hold of Jay Anthony right now. He just texted me. I'm sending him another link.
All right.
I hope he shows up. I want to talk to Jay.
No kidding.
One of the, back in those days when everybody was just starting, you had all those guys and, you look at, let's talk about Chris, let's talk about Tim for a while. I mean, it was Tim Wilson, one of the greatest guys ever. How I met him was, I think it was the second week that we were doing comedy at the Terra House. Our opening act was this guy that Chris sent. He goes, I think this is the first time he worked outside of Atlanta. His name is Tim Wilson. And he was just smart, funny, a singer. I mean, one of the greatest guys ever. Remember about Tim, James?
Oh, Tim. I remember Tim. I think about Tim almost every day. Tim was one of those guys, he could really fool you because as far as watching him on stage, most people didn't really realize how educated, well-informed, and how brilliant he was. I mean, he could discuss any issue. His teacher, his mom was a teacher. His dad, I think, was a school principal. He was highly educated. But when he hit that stage, he was one of those guys that might have looked like he just got off work doing sheetrock work, but when he hit the stage, a brilliant blue collar guy, so to speak. You know, I've always said this about Tim. He's one of those people that he could suck the air out of any room. He walked into the green room, but just walked into a room.
Right.
He had this presence. You just knew that Tim Wilson was there. Yeah. And he and I, when we started, I was not the headliner, and he was not the headliner.
He was the
so we had a lot of shows where we did the show together. Like when he first started, he would be the opening act, I'd be the feature act.
Right.
And then it got to the point where I was the headliner, and then he became a feature act. So we had a lot of opportunities to work together. But once he becomes such a big star, he became a big star quickly, that he was a headlining and I was headlining. So we didn't work the same shows anymore.
Right.
So all our time together was off stage, just visiting. Or he would come to see my show, I'd go visit his show. But one of the great experiences of my life was having a relationship with Tim Wilson. I mean, he can never be replaced. I mean, I love him.
Yeah, you know, and the thing, you know, you guys know that I worked with Tim for over 20 years, you know, from the time he really started. I managed Tim right up until the very end. And, you know, of all the people I've ever worked with, I mean, probably one of the most brilliant people I've ever been around, you know, I mean, a true comic genius. And that goes, and I've been around a lot of people, and, you know, the things he came up with, nobody came up with.
Yes.
Yeah, and also, and
classic.
Not to repeat myself, Chris, but Tim could come up with a routine or on any subject matter, on anything. I've always said this about Tim. I always envied his writing ability. I'm not a great writer. I'm a pretty good performer, but I'm not a great writer. But Tim Wilson was a brilliant writer, and he could just do it almost quickly. Like, how did you think about that? You know, and he could take a serious subject and make it very, very funny, but at the same time have a meaning behind it. You know, so you're right, Chris. He's at that genius level. We talk about Tim Wilson. You're in the genius level.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the one thing about you, Chris, you've always you've had a knack for really, I mean, so many guys came through Atlanta, but you had a knack for picking guys out. And, you know, another guy that you kind of discovered was this guy I was working for IBM. I think we all remember Mr. Foxworthy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember.
Whatever happened to him?
Yeah, whatever happened to him? I don't know. He might be a redneck now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember Chris calling me, you know, because Chris booked the club, my club, for the first two or 3 years. And he called me up and he goes, listen, I got this kid. He was working for IBM. And, you know, he hadn't worked anywhere. So his first paid gig, I think he sent him to me, and he was opening act for hold it, stop the presses, ladies and gentlemen. Stop the presses. I think J. Anthony Brown has entered.
What'd you do, Jay? Did you take a nap?
Look, let me just say something. Let me just say this. If you three guys wanted to talk early before I got here, you could have just said so. You just said before the Negro comes on, we want to do 30 minutes before.
Jay, we were waiting for the big star to show up. I said we can't start until that guy in Beverly Hills.
You know what? This is so weird. This is really weird. You know why? I'm the only one working. I don't know why the fuck you guys are giving me a hard time. What's up,
He's
everybody?
the only guy with a job. Imagine that.
I'm the only guy with a job. How's everybody doing?
Jay, we're doing
real good, Jay. Good.
Yeah.
You look good. You look good.
You look good. Gregory lost weight, man. You look great. Isn't that weird? We're all wearing glasses. Isn't that fucked up?
Well, I can't see without them.
I can't either, man. I can't see nothing. Gregory, you home? Are you home?
Yeah, I'm sheltered in place.
Oh, okay.
I'm in jail.
Oh,
hey, what time did you start pacing? Did you start pacing about an hour ago?
Don't go.
Don't go. Where's he going?
Well, I don't know where he's going.
You probably go to the bathroom.
You know, that was the one thing about Jay. Before he'd go on, he would be
I got something to show Bruce. I got something to show Bruce. Check this out.
Birmingham South Stars hockey. That's when I own the hockey team.
I know.
Oh man, Jay.
What year was that?
That was well, you started the hockey team was 1980. Okay, 80 and 81, and then so I had some shirts left over when the team went to funk, and so that's how you got one, you know. So
Wow.
Yeah. But you know, back in the day, you know, Jay was the headliner. I mean,
I was the first person at your club, and I was the first person at the Punchline.
Yeah, you were the first person at the first show, and I remember
me and Gregory were the first. Me and Gregory were the first ones at the Punchline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We were talking about that a while ago. I was the MC, and Anthony Brown was the feature, and Mark Winter and the Winterettes was the headline. You know, Jay Anthony and myself, we were never big fans of those puppets.
No, we hated those puppets, man. Those guys from New York treated us so bad. They thought we were, first of all, they thought we were stupid. They really thought we were stupid, and they thought we were not funny. But I'm telling you, man, we would blow their asses off the fucking stage.
That's how we got to be headliners.
That's how we got to be headliners. They couldn't follow us, man. They couldn't follow us at all, man.
Can I say something that the audience might like to know? Chris mentioned that the Punchline was the first comedy club ever below the Mason-Dixon line. As a matter of fact, there were very few in the heartland. Most comedians, the only place comedians could perform or the audience could see live comedy would have been like in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, maybe Boston. So then they had the comedy clubs kind of really exploded throughout the Midwest.
It did.
But the point is, when the Punchline opened, then Birmingham opened, and then they had the Punchline in Greenville, South Carolina.
Right.
There was no such thing as a headliner from Kentucky or a headliner. There wasn't.
No.
So all the headliners were flown in from the East Coast or the West Coast.
Right.
So a lot of those guys were funny, and they were brilliant, some of them, but they had a hard time following a guy like Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown would be the feature act, and the headliner was sometimes shocked. They didn't. That's how come they made fun of us.
Yeah,
because we were from Georgia, and we were funny. Right. I'm not bragging, but we really were funny.
We were fucking funny. And I remember Mark Weiner told me one night. I mean, you get stupid shit that they would come up with, like don't talk to the audience because I talk to the audience. So by the time I get on stage, they'll be all talked out. So I don't want you talking to the audience. But Gregory, tell a story about the guy who kept telling you to move the mic, and you kept acting like you forgot it. You remember that?
Do what now?
He wanted you to move the mic. He wanted you to put the mic back in a certain place, and you each night you go, oh, I forgot to move it every night. So he would ask you to move the mic in a certain place. I can't remember who it was. I don't know who it was.
Well, I had so many of those. When I was emceeing, I had so many of those guys that would give me advice on what to do. I tell you who that guy was. I'm not going to mention his name because I can't really remember it. He was the same guy who when I introduced him, there were so many credits. There was you had to have these credits before. This guy did this. This guy did this. He appeared here, appeared that. So I told him, I said, son, I referred to all the headliners as son. Because, see, I started my career at the age of 36. So I was a 36-year-old MC talking to a 24-year-old headliner. I say, son, me introducing you is taking your stage time away. I said, I do it 5 minutes on Central. I said, why don't I just mention your name and see if and you have something else funny you can talk about, So Jay and I, we had a lot of fun.
We had a ball.
A hard time to some of the guys that came here. When I say here, I mean down south.
In Atlanta, right.
In Atlanta especially. And all of them wanted to tell us what to do.
Right.
All of them. And what not.
But they would go on stage and they would struggle because they were in Atlanta. I think they forgot where they were because they would do subway jokes. Atlanta didn't have a subway. They would ask for where are all my Jewish friends, and wasn't a lot of Jewish people in Atlanta.
Yeah, that was true. Well, I was just upstairs at the office at the Punchline, opening night, and I forget the comedian, and Ron was there, and Dave was there, and I was sitting there, and he said they would ask questions like that. And one guy asked me, he said, "Do you guys have Dunkin' Donut here?" And I told him, I said, "Oh yeah, that's what we got, asphalt, I said, we got all kinds of good stuff.
Oh, they gave us so much material, man. But Bruce's Club,
James, I can remember a story. Let me tell you a quick one. One thing happened one night. I think you were featuring for Richard Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. And Richard Lewis was in the back of the room, and you're killing it. I mean, absolutely crushing in the room. And, Richard's nervous anyway. He's out of his mind. He come up to me, he goes, he's killing the crowd. I can't do it's like, oh my God, he's pulling his hair. He's going crazy because you're up there. Cut his time. Tomorrow, make sure he does 10. Don't let him do his time in front of me.
Can I tell a quick about Richard Lewis, how classy he was, though. I had a way of kind of, I'm not saying making fun of people, but I would use dry wit. So that episode you mentioned, okay, when he arrived, I was already on stage. And remember, a lot of the headliners, they would come to the show
late, right?
Once the feature act was already on stage.
Right.
So I didn't get a chance to introduce him. I mean, they didn't introduce him to me. So when the MC announced it, we just crossed on the stage like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I go upstairs, and that episode you're mentioning, Chris, about having a hard time following me. So he comes upstairs, and have Richard is doing this and doing that. And he said, tomorrow, he said, I flew in. He's talking about, hey, he flew in today and it wore him out and he got to the airport, And I'm sitting there, and when the headliners from the New York or Los Angeles showed up, off stage in the office, I would deliberately go into the Gomer Pyle type thing. So I told him, I said, "Oh, Richard," I said, I tell you what, I said, "I know what you mean." I said, I wore out today myself. I said, I'm staying at my parents' house right now, and it's springtime, and my daddy's planting a garden, and you ever use a rototiller? The rototiller gets a roast for these tomato plants, and it wore me out. But I said, about being tired because you flew in. I said, I don't get a chance to fly much because I can't afford to fly. But I remember last night I did fly. Here's what I always do. I said, they must have changed things. I said, because what I do when I fly, once I get sit down and put my safety belt on, I said, I just take a nap. And the pilot and the co-pilot does all the work. It really wore you out, you know. So and Ron was kind of nodding his head. So I kind of left. Now the next night, when I showed up, Richard was at the bar, and I just looked at him. He looked at me, and he kind of waved me over, you know. And he said, "Hey, last night you were just really screwing with me." I used the word. I said, "Of course I was." He said, "Yeah, they told me. They told me." He said, "They told me." And there's another night when D'Annunzio made the decision. And he talked to Richard about it, about letting me, doing the feature spot, let me do 40 or 45 minutes and have Richard do 30 minutes as the headliner.
Wow.
And, yeah. And here's what, and I was so impressed. And Richard, he said, that's the way it should be. And Ronnie Day was right there. And he said, this guy shouldn't be opening for anybody. This guy should be the headliner. He said, you club owners, just because the guy lives here, you think it's because he's a homeboy that he can't be a headliner. He said, I'm not offended. He should do 45 minutes. Wow. And he should be headlining anyway. And that's the only week I ever worked with Richard Lewis. I haven't seen him since then. But I always had a great respect for that step he made. You know,
well, that was cool.
Statement he made. So,
but like I said, a lot of
how classy he was.
Yeah,
you know?
A lot of those comments would come from New York, and you know, it was you could tell the first night it was not going to be a good week for them. The very first night, and Chris is laughing because they would send some of them home. They would
they had to
call us up and said, "Can you come finish the week?" Because we had to send such and such home. Because it would just be bad. It would be bad. I mean, it was not a New York audience, and they just couldn't do it. They just could not do it.
You know, and a
lot
of
thing about us here from the South.
10 minutes. You know,
go ahead, Bruce. What you saying?
10 minutes. You know, it was not good back in those days.
No.
But see, us being from the South, they never forget it. It's because we have a Southern accent. They always call that Southern, for example.
Right.
I mean, I've been doing this for. It's a 20-year mark. I'd be talking, and I'd be working with a comedian. We'll go see a comedian, and he would say, "Well, does your what you talk about on stage? You know, have you ever tried to do that? You don't work up north, do you?" I said, "Well, I did a show in Brockton, Massachusetts." I said, of course, that's South Boston. You know, I said, I've done shows in California, but that was Southern California.
Right.
And I said, I did some shows in Saskatoon. In Canada. I do shows in Canada, but I always do shows on the South side. You know, I see that in the South, you know. So it's always bothered me, you know.
Yeah.
About no matter what you do, or how well you do, or how many tickets you can sell, there's that percentage of people in the business, in the industry, that will still say, well, you're just a Southern comedian, you know.
Well,
no matter how many states you perform, no matter how well you do, and that's what happens.
You were considered a Southern comedian because of where you were from, you know, or where you started at.
Right.
But
they don't base that on
I remember
material. They base that on where you're from, you know.
Right. I remember the Punchline in Atlanta, the Punchline in Columbia, I was working with
I love that
Brett,
place, by the way.
huh?
I love that place.
I was working with Brett, and they put us up, Gregory, in the comedy house. Brett, was it Brett Butler? Was that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was the headliner. So, you know, back in the day, the headliner had the best room, which was no problem. I didn't care. She had the better room. But Brett had a habit of going in the restroom and leaving her girdle, slip, bra, everything on the floor. Now, the place was on the second floor. So after about 2 days of this, I'm like, this is crazy because we shared the bathroom. After about 2 or 3 days of this, I just threw the shit out the window. I just threw it. I threw it out the window. And I swear to God, she never said a word. Hey, did you see a bra, some panties, a girdle? She never opened her mouth. So to this day, Brett, if you want to know what happened to it, I threw it out the window, okay?
Yeah.
I was working with remember Grant, I know you remember Grant. Remember we go on the road, we go to these little towns and work, and Grant Turner, I think you was there, Gregory, and somebody else, and Grant had this thing where he would come to your door when you're in your room. He would be butt ass naked, and he would be butt naked, and he'd hold up 2 items, and he would say, "Do these 2 things go together?"
Yeah, he would. Yeah. I tell you what. See, they put most of us comedians in the condo.
Yes, the comedy condo, right?
When they first opened, it would be in a hotel until they got a condo.
Uh-huh.
And Grant Turner did that one time when we were in a hotel. He was on the 3rd floor. I was on the 4th floor. He had to come up out the elevator, come down the hallway, knock on my door, open the door,
naked.
Just tag over the shirt, butt naked. You know, so Grant was crazy. Yeah.
Grant was crazy. Grant was also. Were you with us that night? There was a comedian on the show. He had an act where at the end of his act or some part of his act, he had a book, and it was a bit that he closed with a book. It was like Jack and Jill or something like that. You remember who I'm talking about? I don't know who it was.
I don't remember the name, but I remember.
You know who I'm talking? So we knew that was his closer, was the book. He'd go to the book. Right. So we glued the book together. So by the time he got to his last bit, he's on stage trying to open that book, man. And for comedians, and Gregory will tell you this, the funniest thing for another comedian is to watch another comedian just eat it, just bomb. There was nothing funnier. I mean, Gregory and I worked a convention one time. Gregory went up and killed. I tell you who else was on the show. Oh, smarter than a 1st grader. I can't think of it.
Foxworthy.
Foxworthy was on the show. Gregory killed, Foxworthy killed. I went up and just ate it. I got nothing. I got nothing from those people. And Gregory said, because Gregory always made me laugh. I don't care what it was. He made me laugh. He said, you think it could have been the shrimp because they were eating shrimp. Oh man, we had so much fun back then because nobody had any money. We go to the Punchline, everybody did 5 or 10, and then we go across the street to the what was that restaurant over there, Gregory?
IHOP.
The IHOP, right.
But I'll tell you, about Jeffrey Brown and myself, okay? You know, I got so many stories about Jeffrey Brown because I love him so much. We've known him almost 40 years. We met in 1981.
Wow.
But neither one of us have ever been big fans of magicians. not the individual guy, but magicians. And every magician that came through had that collapsible. Remember, had the bottle they put a bottle in a paper bag, and all of a sudden, the bottle is gone, and they would crumble up the paper sack. Well, Jay and I were upstairs at the office at the punch line, where the sound booth was. Okay. And we just knew it's going to be a collapsible bottle. We just knew it was coming, okay? The minute he got to that part, we just started laughing. And Jay was yelling down over the balcony into the stage, "Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go?" He kept yelling at that. And D'Annunzio came over to the balcony and told me and Jay, he said, "Be quiet or be gone."
No, I worked with a magician one time, and we worked in a club, but there was mirrors behind him. The whole wall was mirrors, so the audience could see. They could see what he was doing, and so they were yelling out, "It's behind your back. We can see it. It's behind."
Is that the story about the original comedy club in the Chattanooga was the top floor of the Holiday Inn? And, I was working with I was on stage, and Penske and Gray, I think, was.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's this guy on stage. If you remember, it was a lounge. It's like the 10th or 12th floor.
Right.
It's nighttime, but there's no curtain. Okay. So right there, here's these skyscrapers right there. We're right downtown. So this comedian was doing, and nobody was responding to him. He made a joke about being downtown. Downtown. He says, "You people do have a downtown, don't you?" And somebody in the back yelled out, and I can't use the word they used. They used the word MF. "Yeah, MF. Look out the window." It just paralyzed this guy so much. He just left. He just left. Run off the stage.
Oh my God! There was some of the acts, man. I know you remember Greg. You know one of my favorite was Greg Ray. Remember Greg Ray?
Oh, I love Greg Ray. I saw him.
I love Greg. But Greg had a bit where he would fight himself, right?
He would wrestle himself.
He would wrestle himself.
Right.
So, and Gregory and I were up at the top, which was the best place to watch a comic, was up at the top. And Gregory would say, because he would flip himself, he'd throw himself all over the stage. And every time Greg would do that, Gregory would say, "Jay, he's not going to be able to do that in a couple of years."
I thought I thought he was going to end up in a wheelchair or something.
I thought he would hurt. I thought he was going to hurt himself. I really did.
Yeah.
Hey, James, what about the one guy? There was a ventriloquist that had a chicken. They used a chicken.
No, that's Gregory. That's Gregory.
Yeah, but he told the guy, kept calling him a duck.
Gregory terrorized that guy so bad. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'll tell you a couple of stories about that if you don't mind me telling you. Right? And a lot of people don't believe the stories. Anywhere you went to a comedy club, if you go in where the green room is or the hallway is, people would sign their name, Thanks a lot, sign their name. They put you know what I'm talking about. They have a whole wall of autographs.
Yeah, the green room at the first line, they had a whole wall of all the comics. I think Bruce had it too.
Ken and Casey, Ken would write Ken and Casey, and he would put the duck. Well, other comedians would come through and they take a Sharpie and they would mark off the word duck and they're like chicken. And replace the duck with a chicken. Okay. There's so many stories about that guy because he really, really, a lot of those ventriloquist people can be, they're kind of a little weird. Yeah. They can be weird. We know several of them, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the best stories ever was a comedy on Broadway in Lexington, Kentucky. And the late, great club owner, you know, Jeff Gilstrap, owned the place.
Mm-hmm.
And the club was right on the street. You come out of the door and you're on the street right there, sidewalk.
Uh-huh.
Very small lobby, you know. Did you ever work there, Jay? I don't know if you do or not, but
yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
All right. So at that time, Kenny Casey, was the feature act. So the MC is on stage about to announce Kenny Casey, and they don't see, nobody sees him. And they look around, and Jeff told his manager's name was Cord. He said, Cord, check the bathroom. Look at the bathroom, they couldn't find him. They opened the door, goes to the sidewalk, and he's right there outside talking to the duck. He's talking to the duck. This is true. And Jeff says, hey, you're on. Come on. Yeah. He said, give me a minute. He said, I got to straighten this guy out. He screwed up. Yeah. He's had a conversation with us, you know. Can I tell you another story about another puppet guy?
Of course. Come on, James.
Yes.
This was in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? And this is at the point in my life where I had no control over who was booked, you know.
Uh-huh.
All right. So it could be just anybody. All right. So it was Peter Hefty and Justin. Justin was the puppet. Okay.
Mm.
So after the show, we're talking. I always go out to eat, you know. And he said, are you going out to eat? I said, I go out to eat every night. He said, I want to, if you don't mind, can I go with you? He said, I want to talk to you, make you some tips. Give me some. I said, look, and I interrupted him. I said, look, I don't want to give a lot of advice on other people's act. I said, you got your act, I got my act. And I said, you know, he said, no, just maybe you could tweak it. I said, I don't want to tweak it. I said, if you're going to go eat, let's go eat. So anyway, so we'll go out to eat, okay, with the Athens Diner, downtown Charlotte, okay? And he keeps wanting me to give him some kind of advice, you know, about the show. I said, I'll make one suggestion. I said, if you notice, the backdrop of the stage is a dark charcoal gray curtain, okay? The tablecloths are all black, okay? It's a black microphone. So when you come on stage, you're wearing a real dark gray pair of slacks. You're also wearing a black shirt. And the puppet has got real dark clothes. I said, if it was me, I would put some pastel colors on the puppet. Maybe like a pale blue or green. He said, oh, no. He said, Justin, he likes brown. Justin was a puppet. He said, no, Justin likes brown. Here's what I said to the waitress. Check. I ended that conversation. Justin likes brown. You know, so.
You know, all these years, I mean, the joy of comedy is listening to stories from James and Jay and all the comics. You know, the stuff behind the scenes through all these years has been fantastic. I mean, I just love you guys. If any people that are watching, if you have any comments or questions, you want to just go into the comment section. Maybe we can answer a few questions. But you know, hey, why don't we do this? Hey,
can I say something?
Go ahead.
Can I say? All right.
Sure.
And this is what's very, very important, you know, because it's always good to tell these stories about some of the strange people you meet. But here's the bottom line, you know, I have been so fortunate and so blessed to be in a position where all the people that I've met in this business, the club owners, the managers, the comedians, and I've met and worked with hundreds of comedians, 90 to 95% of all of those people have been wonderful, hard-working people. What happens to human nature is that it's the 5 or 10% that are so bizarre, we tell stories about them, you know? Or they're so different that we tell stories about the crazy ones, or the ones who are real wild, or the ones who are not funny. That's a very tiny, tiny percentage. This is the most amazing business anybody could ever have the opportunity to participate in. It's been just a wonderful run, and I just look forward to hitting the road, doing it again. And I have firstly, no complaints about the people I've worked with and met with and got to know. You know, they're part of my life, you know. There's so many brilliantly funny people out there that the American people will never have an opportunity to see. You know, there's a lot of talent that are the opening act. They are the feature act. They may be working right now in Texas. They might be in Oklahoma right now. They might be doing a show right now in Utah. And they're out there and they're working. They're doing what they love to do, you know, and those are good people. They're good people. This is a good business that we're in. And 90, 95% of all the people I've met have been a blessing in my life. I have no complaints at all. I've enjoyed every mile. And I got more miles to come too.
Well,
some mornings I feel like I'm just getting started.
You know, another thing is the event of the year for many years was James Gregory always had a Christmas party every year until about 5 years ago, where we'd have so many comics, so many stories. James, that was the highlight of the year when you used to have those parties. It was awesome.
Yeah, I did that for 20 years. I should have kept it going.
You know,
can anybody see this?
I could almost. What year is that one?
That one is 2006.
2006.
Here's 2005 right here.
2005. That's a good mug. You still got it.
Still got it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I keep everything.
Yeah. And also, it's a bit of doing this as long as I have. It's good to see how some comedians that I've met, how successful they have become, you know. When I first started doing this, for the first several years I did this, and I worked with Jay Leno, for example, when Jay Leno was just doing the clubs, you know. And I got to work with people like Dennis Miller. When the Punchline opened in Columbia, South Carolina, well, it'd been open like 2 or 3 weeks when I worked there for the first time. And I was the MC, and Dennis Miller was the feature act. A lot of people don't know this, but Dennis Miller was a prop act too. He had a lot of props. Yeah. And the headliner was Dave Coulier, who went on to be that sitcom Full House.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I had a great opportunity to spend a lot of time. Me and Jeff Foxworthy spent a lot of time at the Waffle House, at the Pancake House after the show. talking about what we're going to do in our business. And something that Jeff Fox, where they said, this has been over 35 years ago. You know how most people talk about their goals or their dreams, you know. And Foxworthy, I never will forget what he said. He said, Gregory, I just don't want to be another comic at the bar. I want more than that. And I said, me too, Jeff. So, and look where Jeff, how he ended up. So I'm just, I'm proud of all those people, you know. And I remember Tim Allen when he was a feature act, you know. So it's just a great experience.
Well, let me tell you guys, this has been awesome. I know we could talk for hours, and we have talked for hours. And Jay, I can't wait till you're back in Birmingham. James, I believe you're coming back in July. And, you know, we're all excited about getting comedy cranked up again, and we're going to do it. And James, like we always said, we're going to keep doing this until they stop coming, and they haven't stopped coming. And the resurgence of your career. And Jay, I mean, I'm so proud of you two guys. You're two of my closest friends in this business. And, you know, thank you so much for all you've done. Chris, look at what you've accomplished and all the people you have brought along. I'm so proud of you. And I just want to thank the three of you all for jumping on. And James.
Oh, it was just my pleasure. I'm glad we did this. We should do something like this more often. You know?
Absolutely.
We will. And also, I really want to thank the guys at Noise New Media, Steve and Justin and their crew. I mean, they're out of Nashville. These guys, they are absolutely awesome, do a great job. And so everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, James Gregory is going to be back at the Stardome in July. We're working on a date for Jay. And Chris, when's the Punchline going to crank back up?
That's a very good question. You know, it depends on the governor. I'm hoping June 1st or they're around there. So, you know, it depends. I mean, we'll be back. I just don't know when.
Okay.
Soon, I hope.
And sometime in the very near future, Jay Anthony Brown, I got to get to California just to hang out with you. I don't think he can hear me.
No, I think he's back. I think
he's back. Hey! I said, can you hear me, Jay?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. I said, sometime in the very near future, I'm gonna come to California just to hang out with you.
You said that when Gregory found out I had cancer, he called me and said, you know, we were talking about, you know, how long we've been knowing each other. But I mean, our story goes way back because you and Bruce were club owners. We were comedians, and we'd get our little, you know, what was it, $10 or $20 from the Punchline, and we go out and hang out. But I think one of the funniest stories was the Gregory and I were hanging out doing the child murders in Atlanta.
Oh God!
Here we go.
I don't know if we should tell that story or not.
We got to tell it. It's a funny story. We were hanging out.
Everybody these days, Jay, is so sensitive about, you know.
So Gregory and I, we were going home, and Gregory.
Are you going to tell the story? You want me to tell the story, or should I tell the story at all?
I'll set it up, and you tell the story. All right. So they were harming kids in Atlanta. And this was very serious. So either I came up with the idea, or Gregory came up with the idea that, Jay, why don't you sit in the back seat?
No, that's not happened.
All right, tell it then.
We didn't plan this. This is what made it so funny. We didn't plan it. See, at that time, the Punchline had not opened. This was 1981.
Right.
And the whole city of Atlanta was almost, I mean, everywhere you went, there was a roadblock. I mean, the town was being paralyzed because of the child murders. Okay?
Child murders.
But before the punchline opened, there was a place called the Excelsior Mill on North Avenue.
Yeah, right.
And on Sunday night in the basement, they had something they called it a comedy workshop.
Right.
That's where we all first met. Nobody paid us. We just did it. We didn't even know we was going to get in the comedy business. We just had fun.
No one knew.
Because we all had jobs, you know.
Yeah.
But after that was over, sometimes we go out to eat. And I was driving at that time a 1977 Mark V Lincoln Continental. Was kind of semi-dark tinted windows.
No, they were tinted.
Me and Jackie Brown and Steve Studdard. Remember Steve Studdard?
Yes, I do.
We went out to eat, which was on, I think, Howell Mill Road. Huddle House. The Huddle House on Howell Mill Road. It was there for hours because we would talk half the night. So when we got ready to leave, Steve Studdard got in the front seat, and Jackie Brown went in the back seat, halfway taking a nap like this. So go from there, you go down North Avenue, heading back toward the Excelsior Mill. That's where Jay's car was. So I'm driving along. The speed limit is like 30 miles an hour, 35. And this police car behind me, okay, is right behind me. He's just right behind me. And I'm next to the house. I said, that cop, I said, he's right on my ass. I said, I'm not speeding. And Jay says, well, he's probably not looking for you. I said, well, he ought to get off my bumper. So I kept going, and he was right behind me. Then all of a sudden, he turned on the blue lights. Walk. I pulled over. He came over. I let the window down, asked for my driver's license. I gave him the driver's license. And then I said, why don't you pull me over? And when I said that, he looked at my safety sticker on the windshield. He said, well, because your safety inspection has expired. I said, I know that, but you didn't see that until right now. That's not, why didn't you pull me over? I wasn't speeding. You know, he said, just wait right here. You know how the police, he goes back to the car to check me out. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, wonder why he pulled me over. And then Jay said, oh my God. You know, I thought, oh, that's what it is. And by that time, I see in my mirror, I see the cop come back. When he approached the window, here's what Jeffy Brown did. He slumped back in his seat, okay? And he started yelling, help me, help me, help me. Don't take me to the river. Please don't take me to the river. Please don't take me to the river. Help me, help me, help me. Steve started to scare to death. Steve thinks we're all going to jail. And I'm saying, Jay, shut up, shut up, shut up. Jay. He said, man, I ain't going to the river. I can't drown. I ain't going to the river. Okay. And the policeman, I can see the policeman, he wants to smile, but he can't. He wants to smile, but he can't. And Jay won't shut up. Help me, you know. He gives me the license. He says, you boys better get out of here. Okay? And I start to raise the window up, and Jay is still going, you know, don't leave without me, don't leave without me. Don't look at the river, you know. So anyway, listen, this whole episode lasted a half hour. Okay? We get back to the social bill, parks, he get his car, you know. And I told Jay, I said, do you realize how stupid we were? I said, hell, I could have been shot, you know. Anyway, but everybody thought that was funny except Steve.
Yeah,
Steve
we did.
We
thought it was funny.
Pass out, you know. But we told that story for forever, you know. And you can't tell that story unless you're there. I mean, Jay,
Yes.
that's exactly what happened. But Jay and I had so much fun.
Oh my God.
Like full hour before the punchline opened, because we made it the accessory meal, and we'd meet each other sometime during the day. We'd have lunch.
We'd have lunch or something. Yeah.
We'd have lunch somewhere, you know, and so I have I mean, till I die, I always have that special love in my heart for J. Anthony Brown.
Oh my God.
I just love him so much.
We would have so much fun. And when the punchline opened, I tell you what we were working. We were working at Burt Reynolds' place. And Ronnie D'Annunzio, who has, if you know Ronnie, he has no tact at all. None. It's just, I mean,
I love him though.
I
I
love him to death. Yeah. If you put him up against the wall and you said, pick out the guy who owns a comedy club, you would not pick Ronnie D'Annunzio, because he didn't look anything like a guy who owned a comedy club. So he's up at we're up at Burt Reynolds' place, and we're performing that night, and he comes up to me, and I thought he was like, he said, what's your name? I said, my name is J. Anthony Brown. You know, you know how Ronnie talks. I'm opening a comedy club. You want to perform? And I was afraid, so I said, yeah. So that
yeah, we thought he was in the mafia.
We all thought he was in the mafia. and Dave was with him until this day. I have known Dave, 40 years?
Yeah.
Dave has never said 6 words that made any sense. There's never been a sentence that you got from Dave, not like a full sentence. It was, and so we were working a punchline, and at the end of the night, you know, comics would go on stage and mess around. And I wrote a song called I Want to See Ronnie Smile, and everybody cracked up. But the song, Gregory, that everybody got was, what does Dave do, man?
I remember that. Well, you know, the way, here's how come Jay and I was hired, as we talked about earlier, to be the first 2 comedians at the punchline when they opened. So it's in the middle of the day, and we go there to meet Ron and Dave. So Ron don't know. He just knows that Jay's a comedian. He thinks Jay's a comedian. He thinks I'm a comedian. But he don't know and don't care who the MC is or the feature is. Okay?
No, he could care less.
He didn't care. He said, let's just flip for it.
Right.
Took a quarter. He did. And I think Jay said heads. He said heads. And that's how he got to be the feature act to be the opening act. So as the months went by, I would say to Ron, I said, how come I can't feature? You know, you let Jay feature. He said, well, Jay's a feature. You're not a feature. I said, it's just that damn quarter. It's just that, you know. So.
Yeah. But, you know, if it hadn't been for you, Bruce, and you, Chris, and Ron and Dave opening those clubs, because that really gave us a sense of, you know, I don't know about Gregory. I don't know if I can speak for Gregory, but what comedy was, because those were like our homes. You know, I mean, to have a place where you could perform, 5 or 6 times a year. Yeah. And, you know, not to mention if somebody didn't show up, you guys would call us. And
here's the thing. If the punchline had not opened, and then a few months or a year later, when other club owners started opening up, people like you and I would not be in the business today.
No way.
Because I would not on my own just say, you know what, I think I'll go to California and try to be famous. Or I think I ought to go to New York. That wouldn't occur to me.
No.
See, if that comedy club had not come to me,
right,
I wouldn't be in the business today. And you can't stay in the business if you got one club. So it's just so fortunate that other people like Bruce Ayers decided, I'm going to try that too. And then you have a club in South Carolina. I think I'm going to try that too. So those guys are the reason that I'm still in the business.
I mean, Bruce,
people that, you know, there's no way I can paint unless somebody else permits me it's their canvas. It's their canvas.
And that's what when you talk about the Punchline and you talk about Bruce's club. Now, Bruce's first club was not a club. It was a bar. And so I drive to Birmingham and I go to this bar and I said, you know, because that's the first thing a comic would do is like, well, where is the stage?
Right.
You go, well, where exactly is the stage? And Bruce said, that's it right there, which was the top of the bar. He had us on top. Yes. And so I said to Bruce, I said, no. Where's the actual stage? He said, that's it right there. That's so the place was packed. We go on top of the bar. Now that was his first club. The second club he opened up was over a Chinese. Was it over a Chinese restaurant, Gregory?
Over a Chinese restaurant in an Indian motel.
Yeah. and they wouldn't give us any towels.
They wouldn't give us towels. So and you stayed. The club faced the street. Your room was on the other side, which faced like a junkyard or something. Which it looked like you were, when you went to the back of the restaurant or the hotel, it looked like you was in a different world. It's one of those hotels, and if you've ever been where you open the door and you're outside, you see the elements. There's no hallway. You just open the door and it's just everything is there. It's just right there. So you could go to the back and be in your room, and then Bruce would come and get you and say, he knock on your door and say, You're about to go on, man. You're next. And so, and the Chinese restaurant would not deliver food upstairs. You had to go downstairs and get it, man.
I didn't get none of their food.
Hey, Bruce, how about the guy at the hotel? He said that that the comics were bringing roaches in.
Yeah, somebody said, you bring the roaches from California.
Oh my God!
There were some crazy times back then,
man.
And then we started. After that, they have these places where they did some one-nighters in different places. You know, they had a place that me and Paul Clay went a couple times to Macon, Georgia. They did a club, and the bowling alley was in the same building.
Oh yeah!
You try to do a little routine. Somebody strike. It's just an accordion wall between the club and the bowling alley. And I told this story to Ron about a year or two when he come to visit us in Birmingham. And James Brown, I did a one-nighter with your late good friend, Steve Smith.
Steve Smith, my buddy, right.
And you follow Alabama, okay?
I remember that place, right?
Yeah, you follow us like the bass fish capital of the world. So it's getting kind of dark when we get there. No GPS, there's no internet. But we had to we almost got lost because it's not an interstate. You have the interstate go through a highway to a county road. So we ended up on this small 2-lane county road. And then this place is on a gravel parking lot. And actually it's a bar with a small restaurant, but basically it's a bait shop, okay? You know these portable signs they put on the highway? It's got a trailer hitch on the thing with the sign in it. I told Denunzio when we got back that day, this is my first marquee. The first time I was on the marquee, all right? Here's what was on the side as we drove into the parking lot. and a little portable sign. The top line was chopped BBQ sandwiches. The middle line was live baked red wigglers. The bottom line was live comedians Thursday. So me and Steve were the opening act. The red wigglers was a feature act, and the chopped sandwich was the headline. That's the first time I was on the marquee.
Oh my God! I worked at Club Gregory in Miami, Florida. The first show had 6 people. It had 6 people. So the club owner convinced the people to stay for the second show. The second show had the same 6 people and 1 more person, which made it 7 people. So the 7th person came in late with groceries. I mean, like 2 big bags of groceries and sat down. So one of the people from the 6 people came up to me and said, I'm staying for the second show. Now you're going to do different stuff, right? Oh, well, God, man.
Those were the good old glory days.
Those were the good days, man.
Yeah.
Those were the good days.
And all this time, did anybody call, check in? Is anybody watching this thing or what?
I don't know, man. I don't care. I just wanted to talk to you guys.
Here's what the guys told me. They said this is the biggest crowd for any of these that they've had.
Are you serious?
No, I'm dead serious. They've been texting me saying the crowd's been awesome. But
wow.
Yeah, but we need to wrap it up, guys. And
before we wrap it up, I just want to take this time and and thank especially Gregory in terms of being a good friend, because like he said, we started this, man. I had I wanted to be a comedian. I had no idea that it would turn out like it turned out, because there would be nights, man. We would go to clubs. Anybody that said they had a comedy night, we would just go. One of my favorite comedians through this whole thing, and I'm sure Gregory probably agreed, was Rex Garvin. I mean, Rex Garvin.
Oh gosh, God bless him.
He was classic. He was funny. I don't know if he was just funny to us, but I really thought he had a shot in making this as a career. But Rex Garvin, there was an audition at the Punchline for Star Search. There's an audition for Star Search. I go up, I did okay. I think Steve Harvey was there. He did good. But Rex Garvin goes up and he says he's not doing good at all, right? He's not doing good at all. And so he starts yelling, his act is going downhill. And he just said, you know what? I'm not going to be on Star Search. And matter of fact, F Ed McMahon. And we're upstairs and going, he is not going to get picked. There's no way. But he
was one of the funniest human beings I've ever hung around with.
Yes. And I don't want to say he was a comedian's comedian, because he was. There were times he would go on stage and he'd do great, and then there are times on stage he'd go on stage and you're like, well, what is he doing? You didn't get it. But with that being said, man, thanks you guys, Bruce especially, and Chris and the Punchline, and it was something that I never could write out. That here's what's going to happen, and here's what's going to happen. You never thought that it would be like that. When you stepped into the Punchline. The Punchline, it just had an energy, man, that when you was hot, and the same thing with your club, Bruce, when you was hot and you was killing, man, it was just like, it was fire. It was fire, man. And, comics would just watch us as we grew to be, what we're doing now. And it was an amazing journey for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
You know
man.
what? One thing I want to say real quick is that, you know, and to anybody who's left out there, is really and truly, comedy is to be seen live. Okay, it's to
Right.
be seen in a club. Because
Right.
you know, I know a lot of guys are trying to do this online. There'll be some guys trying to do it in their basements and
Right.
trying to do comedy online. It's not the same. See it
Yes.
live.
No,
You
it's
never
nowhere
know
near
what's
the
gonna
same.
happen. You never know. Somebody may walk in, somebody may not. It could be funny on stage, it could not be, but it's always a night to remember, man. So come out and see comedy live when you can and when we can do it. Okay.
And do it.
See
And do
these
it.
guys.
And do it
All right,
as
Bruce,
soon.
take it.
And to the audience, do it as soon as you can.
Right.
You know, because that's good for the soul. It's good for the spirit. It will make you feel better. It'll make life more enjoyable. You've got to have some kind of, not necessarily the word comedy, but you got to have some smile. You got to hear some laughter. You got to hear some laughter. You know?
I think as a comedian, and I'm sure Gregory can really touch on this. You just doing what you're doing in terms of making people laugh. You forget. I mean, we've been doing this 40 years. You forget how many people have seen you perform. So you could be someplace and a person will walk up to you and go, "Man, I saw you at such and such," and you don't really think about how many people you touch by doing this and being in those clubs and just, you know. I mean, just see people pound on the ability to say something out of your mouth and see people just pound on the table or lean back or grab their buddy and shake them real hard. And that's a gift from God that, you know, comics have, that if you don't do comedy, people don't understand what it is or what that feels like when you're on that stage. And I'm nervous every time I go up. So
no kidding.
I'll say.
All right. Well, thank you, James.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you.
Chris.
Thanks,
There's
everybody.
the glass. There it is. And thank you to all the guys at Noise and for everybody who tuned in tonight. Thank you so much.
It'll be back. It'll definitely be back. It'll be back.
It'll be
It'll
back.
be a while, but comedy will be back.
Take care
It'll
now.
be back.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.